Hey, welcome. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most misunderstood chemicals inside your own head. It's time to unravel the dopamine deception and figure out what's actually pulling the strings behind your habits.
So let me ask you something. You ever find yourself just endlessly scrolling on your phone? You know you should stop, but you just can't? Or, reaching for that one extra cookie when you're not even hungry? It totally feels like you're not in control because there is a super powerful force at play here, and it's probably not what you think it is.
For years, we've all heard the same story. Dopamine is the pleasure chemical. You do something good, you get a little hit of dopamine, and you feel pleasure. Simple, right? Well, that's the myth. The surprising reality? Dopamine isn't really about pleasure at all. It's the molecule of desire. It's what gets you up off the couch to go get that reward in the first place.
Now, to really get this, we've got to go back to this fascinating and honestly pretty shocking experiment. So let's dive into the story of the dopamine-free rats, which is where scientists literally watched desire completely vanish. Okay, picture this. It's 1954. Two neuroscientists, James Olds and Peter Milner, are about to run an experiment that will completely flip our understanding of what drives us. And what they found, almost by accident, would change everything. So here's what they did. It was pretty straightforward. They implanted these tiny little electrodes into the brains of rats, and with them, they just shut off the supply of dopamine. I mean, completely. They basically just hit the off switch on the so-called pleasure chemical. And the results were, well, they were staggering. The rats lost all will to live. They just stopped eating. They had zero interest in sex. They didn't crave anything. Within just a few days, they simply withered away and died of thirst, even when water was right there next to them. Without dopamine, all motivation just disappeared. But this leads to a really crucial question. Okay, so they lost the will to do anything, but does that mean they also lost the ability to feel pleasure itself? This right here is the key to cracking the whole dopamine deception. So to figure that out, other scientists came up with this really clever follow-up study. This time, they took those same dopamine-depleted rats, the ones with zero motivation, and they manually gave them a reward. They just squirted tiny drops of sugar water right into their mouths. And you know what happened? Their little rat faces totally lit up. They showed all the signs of loving that sweet taste. They still liked the sugar just as much as any other rat. But, and this is the whole point, without dopamine, they no longer wanted it. The ability to feel pleasure was still there, but the desire was completely gone. And this experiment just brilliantly illustrates the two totally separate parts of our brain's reward system. It's a concept scientists now call wanting versus liking. Turns out they're not the same thing at all, and dopamine is only in charge of one of them. Okay, so let's break this down. The wanting system, that's the craving. It's the motivation to act. It's all about anticipation, and that is driven by dopamine. Now, the liking system is totally different. That's the satisfaction, the actual pleasure you get from the experience. And that system, it works just fine without any dopamine. All right, so we've seen what happens when you take dopamine away. So what if we do the complete opposite? What happens when you just flood the brain's reward system with it? Well, in another study, mice could get a huge hit of dopamine just by poking their nose in a box. The result? They developed a craving so intense, they started poking that box 800 times an hour. Just a frantic, desperate chase for that next hit. And hey, don't think for a second we're so different. Get this. The average person playing a slot machine, chasing that possibility of a win, will spin the wheel about 600 times an hour. It is the exact same dopamine-driven loop in action. This dopamine-fueled feedback loop, it's the engine behind pretty much every highly addictive behavior we know. Taking drugs, eating junk food, playing video games, and scrolling through social media. They're all tied to massive levels of dopamine, which drives the wanting, not necessarily the liking. So if dopamine is all about wanting, not liking, then the big question is, when does it actually spike? And this brings us to maybe the most important piece of the puzzle, the incredible, incredible power of anticipation. And this really is the key takeaway. It is the anticipation of a reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to take action. That's the secret to the entire system. The big dopamine rush happens before you even get the thing you want. And look at these examples. They're so powerful. For a gambling addict, the biggest dopamine spike happens right before they place their bet, back when the outcome is still totally up in the air. For a cocaine user, that huge surge of dopamine happens the moment they see the powder, long before they actually use it. You see? It's all about the anticipation.
So here's how it works. In a nutshell, your brain is basically a prediction machine. The second you predict that some opportunity might be rewarding, you hear a notification on your phone, you smell a bakery, your dopamine levels spike. And that's what gives you the motivation to act. Okay, so with all this in mind, let's bring the science back home. What does all this deep brain science mean for you and for the things that you chase after every single day?
And what's really wild is that, neurologically speaking, the reward system that lights up when you anticipate getting something is the exact same one that lights up when you actually receive it. To your brain, the wanting and the getting feel almost identical. And this explains so much about being human, doesn't it? It's why daydreaming about a vacation can sometimes feel even more fun than the trip itself. It's why when you were a kid, that buzzing excitement on Christmas Eve often felt even better than actually opening the presents.
So let's say it one more time, just so it really sinks in. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. It's the motivation chemical. Its one and only job is to get you up and moving, to push you to seek out things that might bring you pleasure. It really is the engine of desire.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Now that you know it's all about anticipation, take a second to look at your own life. What are the little anticipation loops, the phone dings, the daydreams, the coffee rituals that are secretly driving your day? The answer, well, it just might surprise you.